All right, what's up? Welcome into another edition of Chatt It Up Sports. It's Greg Launard. It is to my right, Joseph Guthrie. I can never get the hand placement right with this
Yeah,
video
it's
thing. There
weird
it is.
because it's
It is. It's
like
like
to me you're
backwards.
on this side, but you're actually
Yes.
over. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
maybe I
weird.
should just like point. Pointing is better. I feel like my
Yeah,
finger can whatever.
yeah.
If you're watching on video, you understand, but if you're listening to the audio version, you have no earthly idea what we're talking about. So whatever. Follow us all over social media because I forgot to do that with Max Chadwick. If you've listened to that episode, you don't know where to find us on Twitter or social media at Chat It Up Sports. Get us wherever you get your podcasts as well at Chat It Up Sports. 5 stars, nothing less. Make sure you rate us and leave us a review and tell your friends or all that good stuff. We're trying to make some waves here in Chattanooga. So yeah, it's just G and Joseph here today. We're going to talk a little NFL football. We just spent an hour with PFF college football analyst Max Chadwick in the last episode. So we're going to kind of give you a little bonus episode here because we wanted to talk a little NFL with you. So when it comes to the NFL, what are we? What? How many weeks are we in, Joseph? I don't even know. I've kind of lost count at
This
this point.
this is week 6, so they're
Okay,
they're 1 week behind college. So it's week
that's right.
6, week
Week
7 and week
six.
6. Next week's week 8 and week 7. So
All right, so we just basically finished week 6. When we're recording this, the Bills and the Jets are playing, so we're not going to talk about that game. But we did have a London game
we did.
this past week. You got a chance to watch that game. The Bears
Did.
destroying the Jaguars, and I know we've talked about it before, but I mean it just doesn't look great, that contract for Trevor Lawrence. And I know there's more problems there for Doug Peterson in Jacksonville than Trevor Lawrence. He's actually been okay the last couple of weeks. Travis Etienne got hurt in that game, and
Mhm.
that defense for Jacksonville, man, is bad. And shout out to Caleb Williams. You've been on him, very high since he came out of college. He's starting to look a little bit better through 4 tutties in that game against Jacksonville. Again, a very bad defense in Jacksonville, but you got to do it. You got to show it to us that you can actually do it. Nice to have Keenan Allen back in full force. We were all kind of writing off DeAndre Swift early in the season, and he's kind of shook back a little bit. And man, if you look at the Bears, as we said, kind of to begin this season on paper, they should be damn good. And after starting the year 1-2, they've rattled off 3 games in a row. Now, going to Washington this next week is going to be a little bit difficult. Actually, they have a bye week, then they go to Washington. But that's going to be a fun one between two young quarterbacks. So they've got the Commanders, then they got to go to Arizona. Arizona's very up and down. And the Patriots, they don't play their first divisional game, Joseph, until they play the Packers November 17th, which is kind of strange.
Gosh, that's what week 9? Week
Yeah,
9, I think.
8, 9, 10, 11.
Week 11
Week
for their
11.
first division game. Golly,
Yes.
dude,
And
that's
then
rough.
it's Packers, Vikings, Lions all in a row. Go to the 49ers, at the Vikings, Lions, at home against the Seahawks, and then go to Green Bay. So there's in that last, what, 1, 2, 3, 4,
Who
5, 6, 7, 8 games, you're playing 6 divisional opponents.
who is the Bears hater that made what Packers fan made this schedule?
It was
Like,
me. I did it. I
that
did
is
it.
rough, dude. That's brutal.
F the
That's
Bears.
brutal.
Well, that that,
So
that
yeah,
last stretch is going to define their season.
100%. Well, yes, from a playoff standpoint, yes, but I think if in terms of a definition of the season, what you've seen from Caleb has been quote unquote success, because I think what you really just wanted to see is him to come out and make plays. And one thing that I've noticed about Caleb in the few games that I've got to watch him is it seems like he's kind of tucked away the ridiculous things that he would do at USC and kind of realized like, hey, most of that's not going to work in the league. Like most of these, like I've run 40 yards behind the line of scrimmage and then I throw it and I find somebody, like that's not going to work in the league. So it seems like he's become a more, I don't want to say system quarterback, but it seems like he's matured in the few weeks that he's played. And that's a good sign if you're a Bears fan. I think that's something that you really wanted to see. So yeah, I don't think any Bears fan was like, dude, we're gonna make the playoffs. We're gonna have success in the playoffs. Maybe they were thinking we could make the playoffs, but we're gonna have success in the playoffs. In Caleb's first year, we're gonna make this run. I think they just want to see some consistent football and consistent play at the quarterback position. So I think if you're a Bears fan, that's a good sign that you've seen so far. Flipping to the other side, man, watching Jacksonville, I think there were somebody had posted this video on Twitter. I think there were 3 touchdowns that were dropped. They were just dropped by Jacksonville receivers. So I mean, it's tough for Trevor Lawrence, man. Like there were chances in this game for Jacksonville to make this much closer, and they just didn't execute. So I
It's a
don't
bad
know. It
team.
it it is, man. And it does it suck for coaches to get fired? Yeah, it does. But at this point, people are going to get fired in Jacksonville. Like it's
Yeah,
just
Doug
it is what
Peterson's
it is.
probably not going to have a job.
Yeah. So it it sucks, but I don't know. I mean, I think there are I think there are bigger problems in Jacksonville than just Trevor Lawrence. No, I don't think he's looked phenomenal, but I also don't think he's looked horrible. So,
All right, let me ask you this question because I wanted to talk about the Titans next. So we'll keep it in the
mhm,
AFC South. The Titans are 1-4. They've won just one game like the Jacksonville Jaguars. Before we dive into that Titans Colts game, if you had to pick one of those two teams to be in a worse spot right now, who's in a worse spot? I think there's arguments to be made on both sides, but I'm curious to hear your answer.
between the Jags and the Titans,
Yeah.
uh,
I
who's in
mean,
a
it's
worse spot?
it's very tough because on
Yeah,
one side with the Jags, you have you have essentially your franchise quarterback, a guy who's shown you that
yeah.
he can make plays, but the defense is atrocious. They've got a guy who's a recycled head coach in Doug Peterson, and then on the other side with the Titans, you really don't have a franchise quarterback yet. You have a really good defense. You just invested a lot of money in that defense. You've got a brand new head coach. You've got some young offensive linemen. So it seems like there's pros and cons on both sides.
There definitely are, and I, dude, I think I might go with the unpopular answer here. I think the Titans are in a worse spot because we've seen it time in and time out. We know what the NFL is a quarterback league, man. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have anything. It doesn't matter how good you are around them. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have anything. And so if I have to ride with one of these teams on who ultimately could get it figured out, I'm gonna ride with Jacksonville because I think I've seen Trevor Lawrence look good. I've seen him look good in high school, saw him look good in college. He didn't lose his first game until he got to the league. Like, how many
Yeah,
other people are
that's
doing that?
wild.
So the talent's there, the ability's there. It's just hasn't all been put together. So I think I'm gonna say Jacksonville's in a better spot because I would rather at least know I'm solid at quarterback than not. Because when the quarterback's bad, man, the rest of the team can check out pretty quickly. And I feel like the opposite is harder to say. If the quarterback's still there and he's still trying and he's fighting, and it's like there's some moments where like in the Jacksonville game, the receivers are just dropping touchdowns. It's like we can get this figured out, guys. But then the Titans game, it's like Will Levis is on a generational run for turnovers and photos, and it's just like, guys, what are we doing? You know? So yeah, I'm gonna roll with I think Jacksonville's in a better spot.
I actually agree with you. I think it really boils down to the quarterback. I'd love to disagree, and I'd love to say that the Titans are in a better spot and they've invested more, but it really does come down to the quarterback position. I mean, you look at what Will Levis did on Sunday, and I mean, he completed 16 of 27 passes for less than 100 yards, 95 yards, 16 completions, 95 yards. That is embarrassingly bad, dude. Like, if that doesn't scream it's time for Mason Rudolph, like, I don't know what does. He's literally thrown an interception in every single game that they've played this year. That's five for those counting at home. But he also talked about how he's been a little injured and he really doesn't have the greatest arm strength right now, which would make sense if he goes 16 for 27 for only 95 yards. He can't push the ball down the field. And if he can't push the ball
Yeah.
down the field, he can't be out there. He even said
I,
in a quote after the game where he believes that, he doesn't feel 100%, but healthy enough to win games. Will, you are not winning any games and you're not helping the Titans. You're only hurting the Titans and you're helping them lose games, not win games.
yeah. And I mean, we you're right. Honestly, like you're right. He doesn't I just want to know what they're seeing in practice. Like what reasoning, what are you holding on to with Levis?
You know what
Like
it
I,
is?
I mean, what?
It's that he's got that Hellman's, contract, lifetime contract with all the Mayo and stuff like that. And I think Brian Callahan is a huge Mayo fan from what I've heard, and he's like cut him in and said like, "Hey, if you continue to start me, then I will continue to cut you into this Hellman's deal. But the moment you bench me, the Mayo, the free Mayo goes away.
Is
That's
this
got to be
Mayo
it.
Gate?
This has got to be
This,
Mayo Gate, dude. It's got
this
to
is Mayo
be."
Gate. There's no other reason, dude.
There's no other
I
reason.
don't
I
know,
don't
man.
understand. It's
Like
unexplainable.
I he's I got to see him in practice. What does he look like in practice? Because that's got to be it, man. Mason has just got to be completely incompetent in practice. Like either he doesn't know the system or he can't make the throws.
Neither can
I don't
Will,
know,
and he
man.
doesn't have the arm strength.
In the
Like I
actual
don't
game.
blame Calvin. I don't blame Calvin Ridley for going on a swear laden tirade after the game, because I'd
Yeah.
be pissed too if I got 8 targets on no catches. I got 1 carry for 9 yards. Like, you can't get me. You paid me all this money to come here to be a de facto 1A or 1B, however you want to look at it, with DeAndre Hopkins, wide receiver within this offense. And you
Yeah.
you don't have somebody under center that can get me the damn ball. And on the flip side of that, from an offensive play caller perspective, nobody is scheming up anything for me to do anything with.
Yeah, that's the thing right there. It's like, okay, I get it. If you're Callahan, I get it. You're kind of shackled at quarterback. I understand that. You don't really have a great quarterback room, but you've got some playmakers. Get creative. And I know getting
Yes.
creative is kind of like, it's not necessarily going to win you games, but I don't know, man. If I was a Titans fan, I would just to me it would be like, well, at least there's some, and I know there's effort there. By no means am I trying to question like Callahan's work ethic or I mean, this dude knows more about football than I'll ever know in my entire life. Like, let's just get that straight. But
I don't know.
as a fan, it's like I would like to feel like at least there's something other than just throwing Will Levis out there, and maybe he's trying to prove a point, man. Maybe Callahan's trying to prove a point to ownership, like, hey, this is what you stuck me with. Like, maybe there was something that happened. I don't know. This is all speculation. This is all just me
Yeah.
shouting into the ether. Like, this is what, like, you wanted to draft Will? Here you go. This is what we got.
He sucks.
He's just not, and he wasn't that good in college, man. And I know that's not the end all be all. I know it's not the end all be all with like success in the NFL translating, because if I've found anything out from watching players that were good in college go to the NFL, a lot of the times it depends on where you go. It really depends on where you go and who you get and who's coaching you. But I never saw anything from Will Levis that I was like, outside of he has a big arm. And I mean, how many other guys have we seen that has a big arm get drafted and do the exact same thing? I mean, yeah, they do the exact same thing. It's like, well, the dude can throw it a country mile. It's like, that's cool. I need you to hit this hitch for 7 yards and get me a first down. Like, I need you to do that. I don't need you to chuck it through the uprights from the 35. That's cool and all, but I need you to hit this deep over route and get us a first down on 2nd and 15. Like,
yes.
I don't know. I'm gonna get off my soapbox because I feel like I'm getting in rant potential.
I love it. I know. I love it. Go on your rant. Talk your talk, big dog. You're fine. That's what we have this platform for. You need to pop off on Will Levis. I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it again. Like, this just didn't feel like the right spot for Will Levis, because we saw it in college. Like, they didn't have good offensive line. When they didn't have good offensive lines at Kentucky, he was not good. He was not good. He was turnover prone. He rushed things. Like, he was not a competent quarterback. The 1 year that he was good in college, he had a good offensive line, and that it made a lot of sense. So I don't know. It's just the fit feels weird. You're right. Callahan didn't draft this guy. I could just see them like, yeah, maybe they just want to continually put him out there so they'll just be bad, so they can get a high draft pick.
Because and part of me is like I don't blame Callahan, because I don't think Callahan I don't think he had any say in drafting that. I don't know.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't even there. He wasn't even in the building.
He wasn't. Yeah.
No, okay. Okay. So it was Vrabel tenure. Yeah.
Oh, so Vrabel was still okay. Yeah. So then,
Vrabel was the head coach.
I don't blame Brian Callahan.
Carthon drafted him.
this is a GM issue. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, this
This is
is
all a
Ryan
GM
Rand
now.
Carthon. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I don't know. I'd like to see what Brian Kelly like, dude. I'm gonna stand on this hill, man. If Joe Flacco's available at the end of the year,
10 toes down.
why not? Why not? Because as much as I love, and I know we'd already went on the college football rant, so I'm not trying to go back into that realm, but like as much as I like Quinn and as much as I like um, Carson Beck, I don't think if you're the Titans, I don't think you're going to get Shador. I think Shador's already off the board, so I don't. That's why I'm not throwing out Shador for the Titans. But I don't think either one of them's going to come in and just turn a franchise around. They don't seem like those type of quarterbacks. They seem like guys that could be good in a few years if they sat behind somebody that's competent. Like if the I don't know if the Packers manage it, which I know Jordan Love's got way too long to play left, but like that's a franchise that if Quinn Ewers went to the Packers, I'd be like, oh yeah, Quinn can make it in the league because he can sit behind Jordan, he can learn how to be an NFL quarterback, he can fit the system, and boom, like. But if he's drafted to the Titans and they're like, hey, save our franchise, I don't see it, man. And I could be
Yeah.
wrong. I'm not a draft evaluator. I'm not just a guy on the internet talking about football. So I could be wrong, but I don't know. We'll see.
No, I get what you're saying for sure. It really is about fits in the NFL. Like you go to the wrong place and your career could be derailed. Like, or you go to the right place and you have an incredible career. Like it's now there
Jared
are
Goff,
obviously going
man.
to be yes. Yeah, absolutely. Like there are still going to be some guys that like no matter where you put them, they're just going to be good. Like Aaron Rodgers, you could have probably dropped him anywhere and he was probably going to be really good. Although
Yeah.
I I say that, but at the same time, like he got to sit
It's
behind
hard
Brett
to
Favre for
know.
3 years. Yeah. And I feel like
It's
that
just hard to
time was
know.
really valuable for him.
Yeah.
Like I feel like Alex Smith learned a lot in the league. He got
Yeah.
thrown right in with the 49ers and then lost his job and then was able to be a good quarterback down the like. And you look at Flacco was, a Super Bowl winning quarterback, and then he's kind of recycled and now he's kind of coming back and playing well.
Yeah.
There's a segment that I want to do when more of us are around and we have some time to really
Mhm.
research it. But like old man recycled quarterbacks coming back and like who was the best to kind of like live in the limelight, go away, and then resurge again? Like whose resurgence was the best? Obviously, like I don't think it's Joe Flacco, but he just kind of comes to top of mind because he's currently doing it. But another guy I was thinking of was like obviously Kurt Warner was on those greatest show on turf teams with the Rams,
Yeah.
and then he went away, and then he was like Eli's backup, and then he gets a chance to go to the Cardinals, and then he goes to another Super. Like
Yeah.
pretty
That was
impressive. There are a bunch of guys.
it was Kurt Warner with Larry Fitzgerald and the Cardinals, right? At the
Yes,
that
yes,
Super Bowl team. Yeah. Yeah,
yep.
I mean if we're talking about somebody who's I don't want to say old head, but like if we're sticking in that realm currently as one, then yeah, I think Kurt Warner and are probably Joe Flacco specifically are probably your best answers. But I mean, in a few years when he reaches old head status, like I think Jared Goff is probably one of the best answers in terms of somebody he was shipped off to Detroit to live out his last few years, and next thing you know, they're in the NFC Championship, and now they're one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl. And it's like, hey, Jared Goff went 18 for 18 the other week. Like, hang on, guys. And I think a lot of people forget about the absolute duel he had with the Chiefs when he was out there at the Rams. It's like, hey, you've seen this
Yes.
guy do this, you've seen it happen. So he just needed. I don't know. Some people say it's a change of scenery. Some people say it's the head coach. I think personally, it's Ben Johnson.
Yes.
Flowers for that man in his absolute bag on Sunday. I think that has just been a incredible, incredible coupling, Jared and Ben Johnson, and then also just the entire mentality that Dan Campbell brings to that team. So
Yes, I
I
love
don't know.
it. It's as a Packer fan, it's hard to root for it. If I was not such a big Packers fan, like I would be a
Yeah,
Detroit Lions fan. Like Jared Goff is a great story. I saw Hendon Hooker got in there a little bit in that game against the Cowboys. They smoked the Cowboys 47-9. It was just a really fun game. And like you mentioned, like Ben Johnson was incredible, is incredible. He'll he'll be kind of on that next mantle and that next wave of head coaching hires after this season's done, I would assume, unless he just really, really wants to stay in Detroit. But,
Yeah.
it is what it is. They have a lot of good weapons there. Gosh, I mean, look, Amon-Ra St. Brown didn't even have a great game. Laporta had one catch
Mhm.
for 52 and a tug. Jameson Williams is becoming a thing now, and they have two incredible running backs with Dave Montgomery, who they just extended, by the way, and
Oh
Jameer
yeah.
Gibbs. But there is a little bit of a down news, and as an NFL fan, as avid as I am, and as big of a Packer fan as I am, I hate this news for the Detroit Lions, in which Aiden Hutchinson went down. He's such a good kid, an incredible player. The story that he has in terms of like growing up in Michigan and Detroit, and getting an opportunity
Yeah.
to play for the Wolverines, and then getting
Yeah.
drafted by the Lions. Like, he embodies kind of what Dan Campbell wants to instill in this group there in the Motor City. And just he broke
Mhm.
his tibia.
I think his tibia, I think is what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, his tibia. Yeah, just terrible
I think.
news.
Let
His
me double
season
check
will
while
be.
we're.
Yeah, you can check it out. IT's on it. Um, yeah, just terrible news for the whole, like, the entire league of the NFL. Just terrible news. You hate to see a kid with so much talent. Obviously, like, when you have to play against him, it's an absolute terror. But just watching him as a pure football fan, you can't help but admire how incredibly talented he is.
It was I agree 100%, and it was a fractured tibia and fibula, so it was um,
Oof, double whammy.
both bones in his leg. But man, this is somebody that's like impossible not to root for. I love Aiden Hutchinson and the energy he brings, and it's one of those things where it's like I this dude absolutely should have been the number one overall pick the year, but I'm
Yeah,
so glad he wasn't. Like, and not even as a throwing, like, I know it was Trayvon Walker and he played at Georgia, and it's like, oh, not even for that reason. This man was meant to be in Detroit. He was meant to be in Michigan as a Michigan man playing for the Lions at what is probably one of the best times the Lions have ever had as a franchise. It's just
yeah,
he's meant to be there, man. And so it sucks. It sucks from just a obviously he's an incredible person, but it sucks from a football standpoint, man, to see him go out like this. And prayers up for the man. We wish the best for you, Hutch. So want to see you back on the field, brother.
yeah. We sure do. Just kind of bumping around in terms of the NFL. Actually, before we bump around, just real quick, let's talk a little bit about. We don't have to spend too much time on them, but obviously they're a regional team. The Falcons
Mm-hmm.
taking care of business. They score in every single quarter against the lowly Panthers, 38-20. Take them down. Kirk Cousins wasn't necessarily great in this game. He didn't really have to be. The running game really picked it up. Speaking of incredible running backs, like we were just talking about Detroit's two, the way you beat Carolina is not through the air, because JC Horn is still a really good cornerback and they have some decent
Yeah.
secondary play there. But Tyler Algier as your backup, 18 carries for a buck 05 and a tutty. And then everybody's been talking about Bajan and where he's been and the lackluster start that he's had to this season. And he said, hey, hang on, I got y'all. And he came
Mm-hmm.
back with 95 yards and two tugs on the ground as well. Drake London continues the ball. Kyle Pitts actually getting involved in the offense. What a novel concept, with 3 catches for 70 yards. So, look, they did what they needed to do. They took away the football a couple of times from Andy Dalton, and
Yeah.
they go out there and get their fourth win. It just seems like it's theirs and Tampa Bay's division to lose, because Tampa, I mean, their
Mm.
offense was incredible on Saturday
Whew.
against the Saints, or Sunday against the Saints too.
Tampa looked good, and in some sketchy spots. But to speak on the Falcons before we move on to Tampa Bay, um, it's got to feel good as a Falcons fan, because it's like, yeah, you can kind of be like, where's Bijan? Where's he's kind of MIA? But one thing you want to see from a good football team, and I think some of the marquee signs of a good football team are, number one, you handle business. So you go out and you beat teams that you are better than, you beat teams that you're supposed to beat, and you handle business. And secondly, being able to win in a multitude of ways. Being able to win, like if like the running game carried the water for this game. Like, you didn't need Kirk to go out and do what he did against Tampa Bay and break Matt Ryan's record and throw for 500 yards. But you saw that he can do that. You saw that
Yes.
potential's there. So I think as a Falcons fan, which not speaking as if I was a Falcons fan, it's got to feel good to know that you can go out and you can win by Kirk balling out, or you can win sloppy. If Kirk is just serviceable and the run game carries the water, you can win both those ways. The defense is going to show up because those guys are just they're there. They're good. They're good players. Hence why you went out and signed a bunch of good defensive players. But it's just you're doing things you're supposed to do, and I think in football it's so undervalued to just handle business. So feels good.
Handle business, they did. Yeah, it was really good, and just kind of jumping around to other things that kind of stood out to me in terms of the NFL. I'll quickly just touch on the Packers. It was nice to see Jordan Love, who, obviously he's been a little bit turnover prone, so far this season. I know he missed 2 games. Malik Willis had played, but it was really good to see him and the rest of the team get right through 4 touchdowns in this game. And it was nice to have Romeo Dobbs back, full complement of wide receivers. Josh Jacobs hasn't been outstanding, but he's been steady enough. Emmanuel Wilson has been really good behind him. Kyler Murray, just kind of an enigma. I've never really been super high on this guy. Obviously, the athleticism, the arm strength. I remember Chase talking about it, I think, when we were doing the pod that Monday from the coach's room at UTC. But I don't know. Just this Cardinals team is just weird and hard to figure out. Like, he plays well against teams he shouldn't. And then in matchups where it seems like he may have an advantage, he doesn't play well. So that kind of stood out to me in that game, and the Packers kind of rolled them. They took care of business.
Yeah, and Marvin Harrison Jr. went out in that game too, didn't he?
He did with a concussion.
With a
Yeah.
concussion.
Yeah.
And that's
That
tough.
hurts.
I mean, it's the guy that's, I guess, becoming your number one target is Kyler Murray. But this is kind of a Kyler Murray consistency issue. It's been a thing. So,
Yes.
but good for the Packers to handle business and move on to the next week.
Drake
There's a
May.
game I
Oh, go
wanted
ahead.
to. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. You want to touch on
No,
Drake
no.
May?
I was just gonna say, like, that was something that stood out to me.
Mhm.
He got his first start and he threw for 3 touchdowns. And it was good to see
Yeah,
actually some, I don't want to say fireworks, but at least some legitimacy to the passing attack for the Patriots.
another dimension for the offense.
Yes. Yeah. Like
Yeah, instead of
something.
just
Like, you
handing
needed to
it.
make a change from
Yeah,
Jacoby Brisket.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's what I think they knew coming into the season. They're like, guys, we know what this is. Like, this is just we're prepping Drake. We're just prepping Drake.
Yes.
And maybe this is the first week in practice where they go out and they're like, all right, Drake, run the offense. And he went out and actually did it. So this could have been why he started this week. Is they're like, okay, he's got the system. Let's see it on the field. Let's see what happens, and let's roll with it. So good for Drake. Obviously, we know what the Patriots are this year. So, but good to see a second dimension from them, and good to see Drake go out and sling it a little bit.
Yeah. What were you gonna say before?
Well, I wanted to touch on, as long as we're talking about rookies going out and slinging it, man, Jaden Daniels is just good. There ain't
He
no,
sure
there ain't
is.
no, there's no beating around the bush. There's no finicky. There's no fluky. It's Jaden Daniels just good at football, man. He's
He
good,
is.
and the Commanders are good. And I know they lost to the Ravens, but they were in that game. They were in that game the whole time. So to go out and play the Ravens at the Raven Stadium and look like that and play well and have a chance to win that game, have a chance to be in that game the entire time, that's huge, man. So, and not lose because Jaden went out and did rookie things like 25 for 35, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, 7.7 yards an attempt, or on average. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Jaden Daniels is just good. He's fun to watch. That kid's going to have some damn good success. And the Commanders are kind of a force a little bit.
They kind of
I know
are.
they
Like, their
didn't.
defense isn't great, but like with
Yeah.
Daniels at the controls, like it's been fun to watch because he's, like you said, he's just good at football. And like, I don't know if he's like, hey, like, he's kind of looking up to a guy like Lamar Jackson in terms of like, hey, like, this is what my ceiling is. Like, I think he can be a better passer of the football than a guy like Lamar Jackson, but still has the
Mhm.
capability to be athletic and to score and to run. Maybe not as much as Lamar does, but like, you see what I'm saying? It kind of evens out. Like, I think he's
Yeah.
going to be a little bit better of a passer than Lamar, but
Yeah.
maybe not quite as good of a runner.
He's not the level of athlete, but
Yeah.
he's just enough to where he can extend plays like Lamar can. And
Yes.
he's probably better at tight window throws than Lamar is. So there's some give and take there, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this was just a fun game to watch on Sunday. Like both these guys battling out, both guys had really good days. Derrick Henry's still an absolute monster. Like it's incredible that he just continued. He's just built different. Like he's just like a different breed of human. Like Chase says it all the
Yeah,
time. Like I don't know how I can look at myself and then look at a guy like that and be like, we're the same breed. Like it just doesn't make any sense.
we are the same species. It's like,
Yeah,
are you? Because that man is like a refrigerator on roller skates. It's like, okay,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It's insane. It was nice to see Mark Andrews finally score a touchdown and do something in this game as well. Hollow
right,
freaking
right.
Luya.
Shout out to Mark Andrews. Oh, he's on your fantasy team, right?
Well, he is on one of them. But
Yeah,
yes, yeah, just in general, like it's
yeah.
I feel bad for him. Like he just has not been any part of the passing game for the Ravens. So it was nice to see him kind of shake back a little bit. And then I know the Eagles offense has been a little down, and it was nice to get their two big weapons back. Smith and
Mhm.
AJ Brown
AJ
came
Brown.
back and they both scored touchdowns and both had big games. And so it was nice to see that for the Eagles, and the Browns just continued to be an absolute a shit
Dumpster
show. Like
fire.
there's no other way to. I mean, yeah, however you want to describe it. It's just anything that's
Yeah.
bad, you can say it about the Browns.
Anything that's bad, they're worse. Like they're
Yeah,
just worse at football
like
this year.
yeah,
So, and
man.
I mean,
Wish we could have kept Baker Mayfield.
I mean, like, not even was it? Oh wait, no, that was Carolina. Yeah, like, and they trashed Baker Mayfield
Yeah,
as a
they
fan
ran him
base a
out the
little bit.
building. Yeah, they ran
Yeah,
him
and
out the
it's like
building.
you don't think he's happy. He's like, man, I'm in Florida, I'm not in Ohio, and I'm winning, and I got some
Hell
dudes
yeah.
around me. Like Baker
Yes.
upgraded. Baker
He
upgraded.
big time
Hundred
upgrade.
percent.
And like there's a bunch of like teams that missed on Baker. Like you said, he was in Carolina, he was in
Yeah.
Los Angeles for a little while. And I think it just kind of goes back to Jay, like the fit aspect. We are talking about Jared Goff
Hmm.
earlier, and like Baker didn't really seem to fit in Cleveland, and maybe he didn't fit in
Yeah.
Carolina or in
Well,
Los Angeles,
in
but
LA,
he's found home.
yeah. And that's one thing. I'm glad you brought up LA because LA for me, Baker in LA for me, it felt like one of those things where it was like obviously, with Stafford not retiring, we all knew, yeah, like, hey Baker, you're out here to serve a role. Stafford's gonna come back. I think that year was huge for him, man. To
Yeah,
go out there, to play under McVay, I think he improved a lot. I think that year was a turning point in his career because it's like, hey, let me show you what I'm doing with. I know you're not Matt Stafford, but let me show you what I'm doing with Matt. Let
yeah,
me show you some things like Sean McVay. I'll take you under my wing for a year. You'll be serviceable for us. You'll play some games, and then you'll move on. And lo and behold, you'll get signed to Tampa Bay, and you get a huge contract. You'll basically revive your career, and the Browns are still doing Browns things. But one thing before we pivot away from the Browns and Eagles, I wanted to get your thoughts on Nick Sirianni chirping his own fans at home. That to me doesn't seem like a good look. It doesn't feel like something. And I know as a coach, it's got to get exhausting and it's got to get old. Like dealing with fans, and fans are crazy, and 95% of fans don't know what they're talking about. Like I get it, I understand, but you know what you signed up for. You chose to be a football coach. Like you chose to be
until it
a football coach at the level that you are coaching. Like you signed up for this. So
yeah,
what do
in
you think? How
Philly.
do you feel about yeah, and yeah, in one of the more I guess vocal fan bases
It's a good way to put
out
it.
of all the other fan bases in the NFL, you chose to
Yeah.
be the head coach at one of the more vocal teams. So what do you think? How do you feel?
I this is just sort of par for the course for me when it comes to Nick Sirianni. Like I it's not a great look, but it sort of fits for Philly, and maybe like in a weird way, maybe Philly fans will respect it a little bit. Like, hey,
Mhm.
like he's not going to let like us just like trash him. Like he's actually going to talk back to us, and he's going to maybe talk some shit back, or he's going to trash us back, or whatever it may be. I understand like how it looks is not the greatest look, but maybe there is some sort of a respect factor there that he's actually standing up for himself. And it just seems like that's his sort of type of personality, that
Yeah.
he's always going to sort of take things personal, and he's always going to sort of talk back and talk trash and things like that. So it doesn't surprise me from a Nick Sirianni standpoint, and just what we've seen and what we know about him and how he acts as a head coach. Like it just, to me, it seems par for the course. And
Okay.
We always talk about it. The Eagles are fantastic on paper. If you don't
Yeah.
have AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, they're not going to compete for a championship this year. They're just
No.
not.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts is, I think, very dependent on those weapons around him, which, look, it's fine. If you can be a
Yeah.
playmaker with really good players around you, you could be a good NFL quarterback. Not everybody
Yeah,
can
for
kind
sure.
of take chicken poop and make it chicken salad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not everybody needs, and not everybody needs to. Like some people just
Yeah,
need to be like what Jalen's doing and what Brock's doing out in San Francisco. Like it, you have these playmakers, make the most of them.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to touch on? I love that question, by the way.
Um, as
Anything
far
else
as the
stand out to
NFL
you? I know you
goes,
got a chance to really watch Red Zone, and I'll be honest, I was coaching. I watched some things to catch up and highlights and whatnot, but
yeah,
you kind of got a chance to sit there. I had to coach the baseball boys in our last fall tournament. But
I
anything
know,
else
I
that
know, we
stood out
kind
to
of,
you?
yeah. I mean, it's if we're talking about things that stood out to me that were glaring, Cowboys are Cowboys are rough. Cowboys in a rough spot, man.
You know
Um,
what was funny? It was Jerry Jones' 82nd birthday too when that shit happened.
well,
That
he
made it
got.
all that much sweeter.
I mean,
Love it.
he got delivered a special one of a kind ass whipping because, dude, at no point in time was this game a game. It
No.
was it was a disaster. And I know the Cowboys are hurt on defense, and I know like they're just this just look like two teams that are in different spots in the league, man. Like,
Yeah.
and if you're the Cowboys and you're a Cowboys fan, I just where do you go? Where do you go from here?
You know
Like
what the saving
obviously
grace?
go for it.
You know what the saving grace might be is that if I were a Cowboys fan, which is a joke within itself, because when I was learning football, that was the first thing my dad taught me was to dislike the Cowboys. So that's ingrained in my
Yeah.
blood at
Yeah.
this point. It's like a part of my being. But I guess the saving grace that you could say if you are a Cowboys fan, you could say, well, normally we're used to going like 12-4. Like we're used to being really good in the regular season and then shitting the bed in the postseason.
Yeah.
Maybe they shit the bed a little bit during the regular season. They're scratching their claw and they find a way to get into a wild card spot. And maybe that'll actually give them some toughness and a little bit of
Mhm.
gumption going into the
Mhm.
playoffs, where that
Yep.
maybe hey, they're not the top dog. They don't have all the pressure on them. It's like, well, we barely deserve to be here. So fuck it. We'll just see what happens.
And dude, I would love to hop on that train with you and be like, yeah, if they were losing the way the Bengals are losing, I'd be all right there. But man, the way they lost, against the Lions,
I know. I know. It's bad. I'm
it's
just trying
one
to
thing
deliver.
to and I get it. I get it. You're trying to find if at any at all positive. And maybe that happens. Who knows? Maybe, the Cowboys, what's the rest of their schedule look like? Maybe they get to a point where they're like 6-6 or well, maybe they get to the point where they're like 3-7, 3-3. Maybe they get to the point where they're 4-9. Have you looked up the Cowboys schedule?
Yeah,
You want me to read this
it's
off
not
to
an
you?
easy one. It's not an easy one.
Yeah, yeah. At the
Jeez.
49ers, at the Falcons, Eagles at home, Texans at home, Commanders all of a sudden, that's not a given. The Giants aren't great, but I mean at this point, I haven't really seen any reason the Giants can't make plays on the Dallas defense, I don't know, man. I just if the Cowboys were losing like the Bengals and they're like, "Hey man, we're like one or two plays away, just get a couple of things battened down and we can really turn this thing around." I'd be for it. But man, I mean, you get blown out by the Saints. The Ravens, I mean, I know the Ravens beat them 28-25, but for the most part that game was not close. I just think it's a wash, man. I think it's a wash for the Cowboys this year.
I hope so. I hope so. Look, I had said it, I think before the season when we were talking about it, kind of previewing things. I was all for not paying Dak Prescott. And look, I could end up being wrong about this, and I don't care. I would not have paid Dak Prescott because I think he's shown you what he is. Like his ceiling is only so high. I'm not sure
Yeah.
he's somebody who can really elevate you to get to that next level, to get to a Super Bowl. We've seen him win a lot in the regular season, but he continuously comes up small in the postseason. And to me, I'm like, why do I want to pay all of this money for this guy? I might rather, roll the dice on somebody else, bring a veteran in. I don't have to spend all of that money. Maybe I can improve the roster in other places, but now you have so much money. And I get it. Jerry Jones has all the money in the world tied up in Dak Prescott and Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
That's where your money is. And
Yep.
it's really showing that they're bare bonesing it around other places. And I think the major place you have to look at is the running back position. Like having an old Zeke and Rico Dowdle as your 1-2 punch.
Yeah, that's
like
rough.
that's embarrassing.
It's not a good look, man. Like I don't know. And Jerry will do the same thing. He'll probably fire Mike McCarthy, and we'll start this whole grueling process over again. And
He needs to fire
it's
himself.
he never will, man. He never
Of
will.
course.
He doesn't even have to fire. He doesn't even have to just bring in a GM, man.
Yes.
Let somebody else do it. Just let somebody else do it.
Just be the face. You're right. Just be the face. Go on the radio
Be the
shows. Do your thing.
Yep.
Let somebody
Be
handle
the
that
owner.
who's got more
That's it.
energy and wherewithal and faculties about them probably to go do that job, because that job as a GM and an owner, bro, it's got to be so taxing.
Yeah. Oh, dude, there's no telling how exhausting that is to do both.
God.
And from what it looks like, not do both at a high level. Like,
it has not been a high level for a while.
Yeah. So it's rough for the Cowboys. It's rough for the Cowboys. And I know a lot of people are like, well, it's Cowboys fans, they deserve it. And I'm like, well, okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. So
well, we'll end this episode of the show. It's kind of a special edition since we had Max Chadwick on and kind of nerded out with him on a college football sense. But we'll end this episode by saying another special shout out to our boys Garrett Tolley and Chase Green on having their two baby daughters. Obviously, Philomena for Garrett and Bliss, and then Gracie Lee Green for Chase and Hannah. Should we give them 3 claps?
Yes.
Love it. Hey, so proud of them. The Hot Dad Club of Chatt It Up Sports has officially begun. Just so happy for them and their family. It's a true miracle, and we wish them nothing but the best health, happiness, and I hope we get an opportunity to see both of those little girls grow up, and maybe Joseph at some point create some of those of our own.
That's the dream. That's the goal.
That is the goal at some point. Maybe for us. I don't know about Miggy. He's still kind of up in the air, but hopefully for one day for you and I. But
no pressure.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. Especially me. I'm the old man of the group, about to turn 35, but it's fine. It's fine. But man, I appreciate you being here with me tonight. It's been fun. I don't think you and I have just done a show together, so this has been kind of cool.
Oh, it's the first time, man. And we've had a blast. We've had an absolute blast.
Yeah, it's been a good time. It's been a good run since I came across you in the Reed House Hotel lobby.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Last January.
The run keeps going, baby. The run keeps going.
Let's go. Well, I will kind of let this out before we get to the show on Thursday that I think we are going to be up at Neyland Stadium for Bama Hate Week. So I don't know if we'll be in the actual stadium, but we are going to be doing a live show from a tailgate with one of our favorite Vol fans, Sarah Blake. Really excited. She's come on my show a couple of times on the Word with G back on ESPN Chattanooga, but she's going to set us up with a tailgate. We're going to have a great time. Who knows what kind of shenanigans that we're all going to get into over this weekend, but I'm looking forward to it. This was an incredible double episode that we did here on a Tuesday, Joseph. Appreciate you being here. Again, follow us all over social media at Chatt It Up Sports. For Joseph, I'm Greg. We will catch you for a live show on Thursday. Peace and love.